Hey podcast lovers, are you ready for something special this Black Friday? Imagine getting more from the shows you love, like bonus content, ad-free episodes, and exclusive perks, all from your favourite Irish podcasts on Headstuff Plus. We're giving you 15% off an annual membership with the code HS Black Friday. That's right, unlock a full year of premium content for less. Whether you're a fan of the delicious Garran Noon, can't stop laughing out loud with Keep It Tight, or can't get the young hot guys out of your mind, there's so much to explore. Go to headstuffpodcast.com, sign up with the code HS Black Friday, and treat yourself to a whole year of amazing content.
This show is part of the Headstuff Podcast Network.
The G-Spot is sponsored by playblue.ie, Ireland's favourite adult store, and we are running an amazing competition this season where you can win over €300 worth of my Playblue picks. Keep listening to find out more. I'm so excited to have Aoife Murray in with me today. So she's a kink educator. Yes. And when I think of kink in Ireland, I think of you straight away. I feel like you're the kink queen in Ireland, thank in you. My opinion.
Okay. I left my crown at home, but thank you.
No pressure, like.
I know.
No, I do. I send a lot of people your way, like, personally, but also professionally, like when I'm seeing clients, and if they have any curiosity about kink and or even BDSM, anything from the light stuff to the heavier stuff, the more intense stuff, I'm like, you have to follow Aoife. And whenever they do, they come back, they're like, I followed that girl. We always say girl, that woman. And oh my God, I'm learning so much. And I've learned so much from your page, genuinely so much. We connected 4 years ago.
4 years ago.
During the pandemic, wasn't it?
It would be, yeah.
Was that when you started your page as well?
Yes, myself, yourself and a few others.
It started around the same time. Yeah. It's funny, isn't it? That just happened. Like,
I know
we were all sitting at home.
I know.
Alone, probably. And
a good bit of time in our hands, time to think, make a few career changes.
Exactly.
Yeah. No, honestly, I'm so delighted to be here because, known you for 4 years now and followed your work as we've gone along. And then got to see when you released your book and to get a copy of it for myself or to recommend it to people at workshops. And so now seeing you here set up in lovely studio, get to chat with people, it's brilliant. It really is,
No, I'm so happy to have you here. And kink, one of our dilemmas today, spoiler alert, is about kink. And I think it's getting more and more mainstream, like conversations about kink. People are being a bit more openly curious about it, I'm finding. But at the same time, I mean, it's a huge world.
It is, absolutely,
I want to be somewhat responsible as well in how I discuss kink, right?
It's a tricky one, isn't it? Yeah. Because you're trying to find that balance between making sure people don't feel any sense of shame for having a kink, and then stressing how important safety is and making sure they're minding themselves. And finding that balance, it can be tricky. Yeah, it really can be.
Yeah, like you want to be sex positive and indeed kink positive, and you know what kind of we've chatted on a podcast before, actually, a long time ago, for a mock for Queer Say, when I was doing that with a mock in Galway. I just remember there we were talking about like kink shaming even, and that sometimes something isn't actually kink shaming, it's just someone, you know, trying to look out for someone's safety, or being like, oh no, like you need to, that's a dangerous activity, you need to approach it in a different way.
100%. Like, I know myself, when I'm teaching workshops, I have to stand there and give everyone a list of all of the things that could go wrong with this activity. And then say to them, look, I know right now I sound like, you know, the gym teacher from Mean Girls who's like, don't have sex because you will get pregnant and die. But I promise you that's not the motivation. Like, I'm not trying to talk you out of these things, but I need to give you this information so you can make an informed choice for yourself. And it can, for a couple of minutes, sound a bit doom and gloom when I'm telling you everything that can go wrong. But we want to go into these things with our eyes open. And that's what it's about. It's never about, you know, shaming someone for an interest they have or talking them out of it or anything like that.
That's something I've learned from your page. Risk-aware consensual kink?
Yeah.
Is that it? Have I gotten it right?
You have risk-aware consensual kink.
Yeah.
And then even when I went on, I've put together my own consent framework. And that was a huge emphasis in it.
Stunning.
because I started to notice that there was just this gap when I'd be talking to people of the standards we hold in the BDSM community around consent and like that, around being informed, and then how it's talked about in mainstream dating. And there was a big gap.
Yeah.
And I was hoping to bridge it a little bit by explaining, look, it doesn't matter what your interests are.
Yeah.
You deserve to have access to all the information you need
100%.
to make those informed choices. And you deserve to say, no, something actually that's too high risk for me. I'm not comfortable with it.
Yeah. Yeah.
Rather than it being a standard expectation of what intimacy looks like.
Yeah.
You get to say for yourself what your intimate life looks like. Yeah.
Yeah. And we're going to be, in one of the dilemmas, we're going to go into like red flags to look out for and all those different things, which is really important to know. So I'm going to like make a educated guess and say you probably didn't get a lot of sex education if you grew up in Ireland in school and stuff. So, did you get much?
Look, I think my experience is actually better than most, but that doesn't mean it was great. I actually like to hear it.
Okay. Well, that's it. It's like it wasn't abysmal.
No.
But
because I did actually have sex education. So I remember, great. So I would have been 5th class at school, and I was a bit young now when I started school. So I think I would have been 10 when I started with sex education. Now, it was a Catholic-run organisation who came in to give a sex ed. So
it's always the Catholics.
There definitely were. I can look back now and see how there was a bit of bias going on there with how certain activities were explained.
Yeah,
and actually the same organisation again. I would have been in second year school who came in, and it was glaring obvious by that point. Now, thankfully, I did get sex education. I understood anatomy, understood how sex worked. They talked to us about generally puberty, how our bodies would change. But I was also told about contraception. And a lot of people, that's where it falls down. They don't actually have any information about how to look after their sexual health. But I still remember being told these horror stories that just, they weren't true. About, now in my work as a sex educator going into different schools, I've seen girls now who get pregnant after being fingered. One girl, she got pregnant with twins after being fingered. And you're like, I don't think hand sex typically results in pregnancy. There would need to be a very particular set of circumstances to make that at all.
Technically possible, but very, very, very
slim.
Unusual.
And for you to have twins before you were due to have your leave insert. I'm like, this was clearly a story to scare us off having more casual sex in our teens. And then there was another one now, just the way they talked about oral sex. It was, would definitely add a sense of shame to it. You could tell that they wanted you, without saying it, they wanted you to be having a particular kind of sex under particular circumstances.
Yeah.
And thankfully, I wasn't the kind of person who internalized that all too much. But there definitely would have been people who did.
Of course.
At that age, you can't.
Yeah, I remember a school once where one of the teachers was asking me if I thought it was appropriate, which is a very passive-aggressive question, if I thought it was appropriate to be discussing oral sex and anal sex. And I'm like, so it's okay to talk about penis and vagina, but it's not okay to talk about oral sex, anal sex, both of which don't carry a risk of pregnancy. If you're even looking at it from that lens. And it's like, okay, so sex that's just for pleasure, and also maybe some sex that like maybe, and obviously anyone can have anal sex, but it's more associated with gay
and
men.
The homophobia comes in.
Yeah, so it's like, I was turning it back. I was like, do you think it's appropriate to only teach one kind of sex? Like, we're not teaching the sex, but talking about it. Then, most young people don't know you can get STIs even from oral and anal and all the bits.
Because they have it so separated in their minds that all of this over here is foreplay.
Yeah.
And then this is what sex is. It's
event.
this one activity. Yeah. It's penetration. Yeah. And you're like, honestly, sex is how you define it with a partner.
Yeah. Yeah.
And it can look like a lot of different things. And you might find that despite how it's kind of set up from sex education, that penetrative sex isn't your favorite part of the experience. You might prefer something else. You might prefer oral sex. You might prefer hand sex.
Yeah. I feel like I traded in for a few things. I did a poll recently on my story of if you could only do one of these things for the rest of your life, and you can't do any of the other things. Okay. So it was kissing, touching, including fingering, hand jobs, like touching each other, oral sex, or penetration. Penetration was by far the least chosen. as the one that you would, and kissing was the top one that people kept. Kissing? Isn't that fascinating?
Because I'm even thinking for myself, I'm like, kissing and touching.
Yeah.
I think would be,
me too.
For me, would be more important.
Because to me, for me, they're the most intimate, like, arousing. Like, I don't know, there's just like, it's so exciting.
And so, find to be a real connecting experience.
Yeah. Interesting, yeah. So then getting on to kink, and I want to get on to our dilemmas shortly, because I could quiz you all day personally about how you got into this and whatnot. But if we could put in a nutshell, you know, what happened, like, in that, sorry, that's not it. What happened? But, you know, you set up a page, not just for sex education, but specifically kink, which I think, and I know this might be an annoying word, but I do think that's actually a brave thing to do, because as a woman who exists online and talks about sex, you do open yourself up to so much bullshit and judgment and whatnot. So, and I'm just talking about sex and intimacy sometimes in quite a general way. You're talking very specifically, more specifically about kink and BDSM as well.
Yeah, things that carry a bit more taboo, unfortunately.
Unfortunately, even though they've been around for, like, you know, centuries. How did all that come about, basically?
Yeah.
I'd love to know.
When I was in college, I got involved in the student union. And so I went to college at Maynooth, and they're known for having a particularly strong student union, high rate of involvement, all that kind of stuff. They've done some great campaigns over the years around consent, around, you know, the marriage equality referendum, all that kind of stuff. So I got a spot as the gender equality senator. Yes. Senator, that's what they called us.
No, Senator.
Senators, Jesus. I think, now I'm not sure what they call you in other student unions, but you might just be like, on Officer. The council, or but I was a senator, no less.
Love that.
And we went in for a consultation day with the student union officers, the people who were in, you know, the paid full-time positions in the union. They served their term of a year, and we were having a chat with them about their plans for the year. And we got onto the topic of talking about Shag Week, you know, sexual health and guidance week, and I suggested to them that they might want to cover something related to kink, because I could see there was a demand among students, and I myself, like, being part of the community, had a slightly different view on it than other people might. And I mean, the welfare officer at the time, he thought that was a fab idea. And then so I was like, great, job done. He's going to look into that and find someone to do that. And then I came back to him a little while later after I'd found my feet, you know, being involved in some of the SU work a bit more, and I said to him, you know, I think I could do that. So we had an agreement. I wrote him a proposal, and I was going to go in and explain to him what I'd like to cover in the workshop, why I'd like to cover it, and then even if he decided not to go with my proposal, he'd have that then to make an informed choice of bringing in a professional. That's the way I viewed it. At the time, I didn't know, like, no one else in Ireland was doing that. It never occurred to me. I'm like, surely there's someone who's covering that. And went in, and I read him my proposal, and he goes, okay, so what day are you free?
Okay.
And that was it. And then in the end, I ended up running 6 workshops to accommodate all the students who wanted to come.
Yeah, your workshops, like, sell out, like, they get so many, don't they?
It does depend on where I am.
Yeah, of course.
Because there's certain student unions, this would be a bit of a shocker now, you know. So where you get certain places where it's seen as a bit more taboo. Maybe they haven't been running a Shag Week for as long. So it's, you know, it doesn't get the same focus from students. Or one thing I often hear is, oh, you were in my college. I really wanted to go, but I didn't feel able to. Unfortunately, that's something that happens. But yeah, so I ran those 6 workshops, and then I was answering people's questions on Instagram. And at the time, it was just students in Maynooth who sent in their questions. And it was clear there was a demand there.
Yeah.
And next I was asked by another student union would I come in and run a workshop for them. And I said, okay. And before I knew it, I had a career. Like, I didn't set it. As far as I was concerned, I was doing this one day of workshops. And now here I am. It's been 4 years.
Isn't that amazing, though?
Yeah.
That it happened. I'm so glad it happened, because
that it happened that way. Yeah. I think the best things do, though, where you find an interest.
And follow that and see.
And then this is where you end up. I'm sure for yourself it was similar, though. Like, it was based on you saw a gap. There was something you were interested in.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden you have a book and you have a podcast. And when you look back, I mean, so much hard work goes into that, of course.
It does, like so much,
but
But still, because sometimes I still get surprised where I'll be talking about something that I talk about every day in my work. And someone will message me being like, oh my God, when you spoke about X, Y, and Z, I was just mind blown. And I was like, really? And it's not a reflection on them. It's more that I am we're in this bubble, aren't we? Where we're like, surely people are talking about this now.
Yes.
But then you step out of the bubble, you're like, oh no, there's still so much stigma and taboo and silence and all those fun bits.
And I really think it comes from the idea, like myself and yourself, you think, oh yeah, but I mean, we're just going about our work day. Sure, if I know that, surely
everyone
other people
else does.
That.
No.
And then you get those moments where you're like, oh wait, they don't.
Yeah.
That is a new idea for somebody. Amazing.
Yeah. And you grow personally as well.
You do, of course.
As well. Like even the way when I start out, like my understanding of sex and intimacy, even in 2020, is very different to what it is now.
It is, absolutely. Yeah.
And that helps people because it shows that, even a professional always is learning and growing to do, and you can come along with them at your own pace.
That's an amazing lesson people can take away for exploring kink as well, because we do the best we can at the time, but there will be human error, there'll be misunderstanding, there will be small things that happen along the way, missteps, and you learn from it and you incorporate that into your practice then, and you keep rolling. And that's how life is with anything.
Of course. We're gonna get into our dilemma, our first dilemma.
Okay.
Lovely listeners, I've got an exciting announcement as well as our usual fab toy recommendation, so listen closely. My pick of the week is the Alive Supremacy leg restraint, courtesy of our sponsor PlayBlue. This is the perfect way to dip your toes or your legs into a bit of bondage, as it is so simple to use, yet can add so much excitement to your play. Put plainly, these restraints help keep your legs held open in the same position. The adjustable straps and padded cuffs make it very comfortable while helping you and your partner find that perfect angle. Now, how would you like to win not just these beautiful bondage bits, but every other toy we feature this season? That's an amazing collection of PlayBlue goodies worth over €300 up for grabs in our new Season 2 competition. Entering is so easy. Just check out the episode description or my Instagram page for details. Our winner will be announced during the last episode of the season on December 18th. Good luck! And if you want to treat yourself right away, don't forget you can use the code GRACE10 to get 10% off your order at playblue.ie.
If you want to support this podcast and get a full ad-free episode, sign up to Headstuff Plus.
Hi, Grace Alice. I'm 31 and they have M, so they're male. And I've recently become really curious about exploring kink, especially a dom-sub dynamic. I've done a bit of reading and I'm particularly interested in being the submissive partner in that kind of relationship. The idea of giving up control in a safe, consensual way, specifically with an older woman, is really exciting to me, but I'm not sure where to start, especially living in Ireland where there's not a huge open scene for this kind of thing. I don't know how to go about finding someone trustworthy to explore this with. I've heard horror stories about people who jump into the kink world with the wrong person and end up in dangerous situations. I want to make sure I'm being safe and that I can trust whoever I explore this with. I'm not sure what red flags I should be looking out for. Where do I even begin, and how do I make sure I'm doing it safely, especially as a newbie to the scene? So there's kind of two questions. There's kind of where do I even start with kink, and then there's the red flags to look out for.
Yeah.
So probably where to start is a good place to start. Because I'm a Kerry woman, and if I were to suddenly decide tomorrow that I really want to get involved in the kink community, I think I would be worried straight away that there's probably nothing going on in Kerry. There probably is loads going on in Kerry, but I just don't know.
Don't know.
Not maybe on a public level.
Yes.
Apparently there's loads of swinging even going on in Kerry. Country, rural areas are known for swinging. But anyway, that's a whole other episode maybe. So what do you think? Where to start in Ireland? Yeah. Any pointers apart from your Instagram page, which will obviously flag at the end.
So it's a really good question, and it's one of the most common ones I get. Okay, and I say to people, look, if you decide you're going to take up a new hobby, so you decide, right, I am going to start rock climbing and I want to get to know people who are involved in rock climbing. Well, what are you going to do? You're going to look up and you're going to somehow find a group or a community of somebody who's interested in the same things you are. And yeah, ultimately your goal might be like, it'd be great to like date a rock climber, but you're not going to arrive in, are you, day one and go, hi everyone, I want to fuck a rock climber. No, normal rules of play, they're still there, So you'll find a group or a community space that you are happy with, and you'll get to know people. Now, for some, it starts very simple, and it's literally they would look for some online spaces because maybe they're not quite there with, going in person, and they're still getting to grips with things a bit more. So you'll get things like you get certain Discord groups, or you will get people who sign up for FetLife. So it's a social media platform for people who are interested in kink and BDSM. Now, look, we work with what we have here. It's not the best. It's not the best.
Yeah.
But it can be...
We're not Berlin. I just think of these cities who are like thinking,
I know,
they don't bat an eyelid probably.
Yes,
they're like, I'm going to a kink party after lunch.
And they seem to have some of the nuances worked out in a way we haven't quite got in Ireland.
Yeah, we'll get there.
So if you sign up with the profile now, you will get some messages you don't want to be answering.
Yeah.
You will see people who have profile pictures who are just like, it's just a dick pic or something like that, because they haven't quite got the...
Charming, yeah.
They haven't quite got what's going on here yet. So, brace yourself for those things and decide whether you want to be involved or not. But what it's great for, and if you use it for nothing else, you get to see the events that are on in your area. And that's why I say to people, it can be a real asset to you. And
so sorry, what was that app or website?
FetLife. FetLife.com.
Yeah.
So you can go on it and you can see the events around you, and you might be surprised. So you'll get a swinging party, or you would get what we'd call a play party. So where people are actually showing up, to socialise and have a chat with each other, but there are the options to get involved in certain kinds of BDSM play. You'd see things like impact play done quite a lot, so spanking, that kind of thing. See some people doing some rope bondage maybe, and you get to stand back and politely watch others play, or you could get involved with a partner yourself. But the thing that might surprise people most is how innocent and some of the meetups can be. Like there's one that's focused on arts and crafts. You might have one that's like, there's one that's focused on board games.
Yeah.
You have all different kinds of meetups for like a table quiz or something. It can be very ordinary.
Yeah, and I suppose that's a nice safe way or a gentle way to introduce people, in the sense that it would be intimidating for most people to, especially coming from this Irish context, and we've so many hang-ups about sex and whatnot, to I'm going to a kink party or meet up.
It's still intimidating for me.
Yeah,
it's
exactly.
how it is. Yeah.
And you're an expert, and it still would be like nerve-wracking.
Of course,
you don't know what you're walking into. So that's nice that there's just normal. There's brunches and stuff as well, isn't there?
Yeah. So we typically call a meetup like that where you're just going to arrive in your everyday clothing.
Yeah.
There isn't play taking place. And just to be aware that there will be other people around who are probably not part of the community. So, you mind your P's and Q's in that way. So that's typically called a munch.
A munch, yeah.
And you can look out for munches.
Yeah.
I found out apparently it's going back to, there was originally a particular restaurant, I think it was a burger place in San Francisco, where the community used to meet, and they would say they were going for a munch. That was their code. And then if alcohol is involved, it would have been a slosh. But the thing is, in Ireland, 90% of our munches are actually sloshes.
I was about to say, I feel like that's gonna
that's kind of standard practice.
Stick here.
But you can go in, you have a chat with people. And then for them to just keep an eye out for, their own privacy and their own well-being. So if you're going to set yourself up a profile somewhere like FetLife, typically people, they wouldn't use a profile photo that had their face in it. They won't set it up as their full name. They would often choose to go by an alias. They have a lot of people, they would be known by that alias within the community then. Now, for myself, it makes no difference because I do this for a living.
Publicly,
but not everybody is in the same boat. And honestly, if this wasn't my job, I wouldn't be as open and forthright because, there just wouldn't be a purpose to it, I suppose. But yeah, and people are generally quite respectful of that. So you come in and you will give somebody your alias or your C name, and then that's what you're known by. And unless you had developed a close personal relationship with them, then of course you would know that person's name, and you'd know all of the normal things you know about somebody in a relationship. But just to give a little bit of cushioning, so you're a little bit further removed from it and allow your privacy, it'll be quite a common practice.
Yeah, and that sounds really again, like, I suppose it's sensible, the word, like it sounds very, you know, not jumping in at the deep end, like that kind of, you know, keeping in touch with yourself, going to these munches or meets and all those bits that, you know, again, you're not like baptism of fire going straight in. You're just actually meeting people and getting used to even chatting about it. And seeing
because
who else
even
is
that
around.
can be nerve-wracking. You know, I remind people at workshops that if they want to ask questions, they want to take part, or even to like disagree with an opinion someone else has shared, completely cool. But just to bear in mind, this could be the first time somebody's ever spoken about this. And you get it the same way when it's somebody who's venturing into the community for the first time. They're suddenly trying to work out what the new norms are in this community and how they conduct themselves, and they're worried about saying the wrong thing, and there's a whole new language you have to learn, all the lingo.
Of course,
And that can be really intimidating for some people. And that's why, you know, even the person who asked the question there, I don't know whether, for example, he's like interested in finding a partner, if that's where his thinking would be going. But I say to people on this stuff, you know, the slow way really is the fast way, because you'll go in there, you'll make connections, you'll meet people, you'll have a support system, so you can turn to them and say, look, I'm starting to get to know a potential dom. They said something, and because this is new to me, I'm not sure. Would that be a red flag? Is that actually something that's kind of a standard in the community? Yeah. And you have that little bit of a support system around you of people who understand what's going on, and you can help keep each other safe, look out for each other. And
I definitely want to get into the red flags, particularly around like doms, because I think the power dynamic there is like, you definitely, those boundaries and those lines that can be crossed, and what is appropriate, what's not. But just to ask first, I'm curious, do you find that because kink has become, I don't want to say it's become more mainstream, I don't know, is that like the correct way to put it, but like I feel that like certainly performances of it are, or like references to it, pop references,
I understand exactly
whatever.
What you mean,
And with that, do you find that there's people kind of joining the community or trying to join that have misunderstood what it's about? And because what I'm thinking of, right, is like, I'm still figuring myself out, what I like, what I don't like. I'm hoping that's a lifelong thing, you know.
Oh, that's learning. The fun of it, isn't it?
I definitely think I have a praise kink. Like that's like, it's part of all my fantasies. It's what I really enjoy. Is that kind of talk. And like sometimes in with this praise kink, you know, I sometimes like things to be a bit rougher. Nothing very extreme. Just kind of sometimes I'm in the mood for like a bit, you know, but firmer touch, right?
And this is where you can give your partner a wink and be like,
and like, and I'll literally be like, oh yeah, I need it a bit, you know, a bit harder, or then other days I'm like, no, I want it to be
gentle and sensual.
So, but before, like, especially before my partner, because like I'm with him years now, but like when I was having like a lot of casual sex, now I didn't have the word for praise kink. I was still learning myself about even just not normal, but like typical sex language. And I found that often men would kind of, if you kind of mentioned a kink, or even just mentioned something like, oh yeah, I like this particular act if it is a bit more rough than typical, they would interpret that as like, oh, I can be as rough as I like, or I can like call you names, or I can like, and I'm like, oh no, I actually don't like being called names. I actually like being praised.
Yes.
So kink, from my understanding, for me, it's very erotic.
Yes.
It's not just an act. It's not the physical acts you're doing, whether you're spanking or whipping or choking or any kind of physical act. It's about the erotic stimulation, right?
Yeah, so, and the intellectual stimulation that comes with that.
Exactly. But I think a lot of people are maybe going into the community not knowing that, possibly.
Yeah, not quite understanding. And I mean, so in the BDSM community, our focus is on consensually exchanging power.
Yes, yeah.
And that's
power,
that's really what underpins all of that. You know, and so that can be misunderstood a lot. Now, there are some people who, for example, they might only have one kink. Maybe they only have a praise kink, or maybe they have a particular fetish, and they would still become involved in the BDSM community because they meet like-minded people and they really appreciate the structure and the way we do things and how consent's approached and how you can go about finding a partner who'd like to indulge that with you.
Yeah.
And how just all these conversations are on the table for once.
Exactly, yeah.
And so, absolutely, this is a no way to say, like, let's say if you just have praise kink or you just had a a fetish for stockings or whatever it might be, that you wouldn't be welcome and shouldn't be at home there, because absolutely, please, by all means, come along. But that's the underpinning there. We're looking at consensually exchanging power with a partner. And so much of that is, it's intellectual.
Yeah.
It's about how we perceive that act. I mean, you could be doing something where, let's say, your partner brings you a cup of tea. Now, is that because you have an understanding that your partner is serving you? Or could it be you have an understanding that your partner is caretaking for you? So where does the power lie in that interaction? Is it an act of kindness and care and service? Or is it supporting and they're doing it from a more dominant place as your caregiver, saying, you're mine, belong to me, and I'm going to make sure that your needs are met because I take good care of my things. You know, like how far do you want to take that in?
I love that.
Mindset each direction.
So the power bit, is so important. And like one thing that I think even ties in at my work when you were talking about that was the concept of like your core desires. And there'll be a whole bonus episode on this. So this is why you need to sign up for the bonus episodes, everyone, please. I delve in way deeper. But, you know, bringing you that cup of tea, or if it's something, again, sexual, like, I don't know, being spanked, just taking something. So it's like, okay, you like to be spanked because why? How does it make you feel?
That's such a good question you can ask somebody when you're exploring play. Okay, what is it that you want to get from this? What feeling do you want to have? And there can be so many reasons. Take something simple as being spanked. So it could be, you know, I'm really a masochist and I find I get a great endorphin release from this activity. And so that's why I want to do it, because it'll produce a bit of a, almost like kind of a runner's high for me, and it'll feel great.
Like a physical
release, it could be that it's a turn on. And it's that simple. It feels good. It turns me on. I find a tiny bit of pain in that way sharpens pleasure almost. And that feels great. You could be using it for a form of catharsis almost, and you'd like to let your partner know that, that it would almost be kind of meditative in a way, and there's just this one sensation you're focusing on and a feeling of surrender you're giving to your partner, because there's so much vulnerability in having that interaction. And that brings a huge sense of catharsis for you. And in which case, as the receiver, you're going to look very different, aren't you? Whether it's giving you that or whether it's turning you on, you know? And having those conversations of what is it you want out of this?
Exactly. Because you could look at two people engaged in any kind of sexual activity, and then two more people in the next room are doing the exact same physical act. But the erotic charge could be completely different. Like the erotic experience of all those people could be different. They could be getting different feelings out of the same physical act. So then when we look at red flags to look out for in the kink world, maybe specific because this writer is more leaning towards being a sub or being submissive to a more dominant older woman, I think he said. That's probably a common dynamic, is it? I was just guessing. I'm sure. So what, like, because this is where now again I'm not super experienced at all. Anything that's come to my head is just like, I suppose it's so easy for people to become abused or be taken complete advantage of under the guise of being dominated or being a submissive. So how do you find someone that's like you can trust to be your dom? Like I think that's a big one.
Just really important. We always come down to consent in this. Okay. So you say, well, what is the difference between being in a relationship where there's coercive control and between where there's a consensual power exchange? And really the crux of this is consent. And to remember that even if somebody has a relationship and it doesn't look the way you would like your relationship to look, are they in this relationship consensually? At any point, can they say stop? Can they leave that relationship? Can they have a conversation and kind of renegotiate the terms of what is okay and what isn't okay, and how have my boundaries shifted? How am I feeling? And that's really the crux of this. We're prioritizing consent at every point. And it has to be ongoing. We don't just sign our life away and that's it. And all these things, they can sound very daunting, but this is stuff you do every day anyway. You just mightn't have the language for it. You know, like for example, I came in here to record today. I know at any point if I need to stop, I can stop. I'm not bound to stay here recording with you if something was to come up and I was to feel uncomfortable. She'll lock the door now.
Sake, I need the recording. No, completely. You practice consent every day.
Practice ongoing consent the whole way. Just because you had an appointment doesn't mean that you were honor bound to stay there. You know, if something was to come up, you're feeling uncomfortable, you need to let someone know, you need to reschedule, you need to move things around. We do these things every day anyway. We're just taking it into this new context. And so what you want, firstly, is somebody you can see who prioritizes your consent.
Yeah.
So it starts with really small things, like if you let them know you like or you dislike something, how do they react? If you say no to them on the small stuff, or you enforce a boundary somewhere, I would like to see a dominant who's just validating that for you. And it doesn't need to be a big dramatic display, but just like, oh, okay, thanks for letting me know, or oh, cool, I'll make note of that, or I'll remember that, and you keep rolling. You know, it's in many ways there's a lot of these skills that are completely transferable, and you would like to see in any relationship.
Yeah. Completely, yeah.
And then, so what we'd like to see is a dominant who's honest about their experience level in the community and their skill set. And we will all have shortcomings in our skill sets. Nobody is ever going to be an expert in everything. Yeah. Like, for example, like I know nothing about rope bondage. Like, complete novice.
Don't you?
No, I don't know.
No, I don't either. I'd love to, though. It's really interesting.
It's beautiful.
But it's an art form. It's
absolutely.
Like, oh my God, it's so intricate and like just...
It is absolutely beautiful. Yeah. So I know nothing about that. Now, from the outside, somebody could go, okay, well, what's she doing saying that she can be a dominant then?
Right.
You know, but you're like, we will always have shortcomings. And what I want to see more is somebody who says where their experience is, where they're kind of at on their journey of kind of refining that skill set. Because I really believe it's almost like, say you're a dominant, you've given yourself a job title. Yeah. And there's certain things that go along with that. Yeah. With taking on that responsibility and declaring, I am fit to be responsible for the well-being and safety of another person at moments of vulnerability. Certain things have to go along with that. So yeah, and if they're open to learning and improving as they go along, and just happy to go on that journey with you, because even if you're the less experienced partner, the hope is we're always trying new things on for size. We're always learning as we go. It's where the fun is.
Yeah, communication.
Yeah,
and
it is.
Keeping... I think you mentioned before possibly that maybe a bit of a red flag saying or something to look out for is someone who says they have no limits or they've no...
Yes, absolutely.
Is that how they phrase
that's how they phrase it, yeah. So
you have to have
in BDSM, we would have what we call our limitless. Those of us who would play regularly.
Soft and hard limits,
soft and hard limits, absolutely.
I'm learning.
Yeah. I don't know, you came
I've done my homework.
Yeah,
but I've been following you for 4... So you just absorb it like...
A little
it's
bit,
so interesting.
Go along. Yeah, so soft limits, things... you are open to doing, but you need certain conditions or certain accommodations in place often. So I would have a few for my health because I have a chronic illness. So there's certain things like actually we can't do it this way because like it causes pain. So one for me, for example, would be wearing a gag. Okay, yeah. So it's likely to trigger facial pain for me if the gag was too heavy. Or too big. And then it also needs to be left loose enough so basically I can just spit it out at any point. And I have an understanding then with my dom that that's not me being a cheeky shit. Yeah. Like, you know. A brat. Yeah, a brat. Yeah.
Brats, some are very fitting.
I know. I found that hilarious that word became.
That word,
so popular.
It's great.
But that he understands what's happening and it's like, oh, right, you're okay. You're not grand. Yeah. We can carry on. Cool. Like it's very simple interaction, but because we had that conversation beforehand, it's taken care of. Whereas normally, if I was trying to get out of the restraints, it is because I'm being a brat. So we need to know and have that distinction. Yeah. And so that's on my soft limit list. Doesn't mean I don't enjoy it. I need certain accommodations around it. And then we get to hard limits. And those are things that you just, no, you won't do. They're off the table.
Full stop, no.
You're not interested in. And it's just very clear and quite clean. And I mean, you can put anything there. People have this idea that it has to be something that's particularly transgressive. And I mean, they can be, and they often are, but you'll find that people have like ones that are just specific to them too, or meet people, they're huge masochists, you know, would be interested in pain play that would go far beyond something I was comfortable with, let's say. But on their hard limit list, they're like, do not fucking tickle me.
Yeah.
Don't tickle me. Or it could be a textural thing where some people are like, I cannot stand the texture of anything that's like fur or faux fur.
A sensory thing.
A sensory need.
Yeah, I definitely would have some there sensory-wise.
Yes, some sensory ones. And that's how we explain our boundaries. Now, it doesn't matter whether you are the most accomplished master or mistress that has ever been and you have a very wide and varied skill set, or whether you are somebody who wants to fully and completely submit to another person and it feels like a real core part of your identity.
Yeah.
You will have some of these.
Yeah.
Because you're a human being first. And
of course,
a dominant or submissive or whatever it might be after that. Everybody will have, even if your limitless is quite short, there will be something that for you, you're like, no, I'm not comfortable with this, or this would be damaging.
Yeah.
So
I think what I'm taking from this as well, when you're discussing all this, I'm like, wow, this is going to take time to build up. So I suppose another red flag would be anyone, again, this person's looking for a dom, anyone who wants to like jump right in and seems to be moving very quickly is probably like, it's not necessarily that they're, you know, a terrible person or they're a predator, but like it's something that, especially if you're new to the scene, you absolutely not. Like you might even be impatient and raring to go, but I think you really need to take it step by step by step by step by step.
Yes.
Because there's so much what you're describing. There's a lot of vulnerability, communication, intuition.
That's very much the case. And I mean, we would describe people who get involved in the scene and they're on that high and they want to try everything right away and they want to see all the things. So we'd have a term for it and we'd say that they were in frenzy. So it's where they're like, you know, getting the real endorphin hit from going to the play event or from having that.
Like the honeymoon phase of Kink.
Absolutely. And it can cloud your judgment a little bit.
Of course it can,
And so we see that with people who are new to the community, who've just joined, but sometimes you'll see it in other cases as well. So maybe someone who's come out of a long-term relationship and they're starting to explore again. Could be someone who had to take a little bit of a break, or they just weren't able to devote the time they would like to exploring that part of their lives. And when they can again, it comes through. But just to be conscious that it's something that can happen. And this is why we like to have a sit down and a think about where your boundaries lie and what it is you like and dislike before we get into these situations. So before you're at that kink party and trying to decide, would I like to try this or would I not? Before you're literally in the bedroom about to be tied up, you know? We start on neutral ground. And some of it is just having a bit of a chat with yourself about what you want. It can actually be really helpful to write them down. So, we don't all have the formal contract meeting like you see in 50 Shades of Grey. You know, they sit in the boardroom.
You mean that wasn't accurate?
But one thing they do is they talk about limits and about boundaries. And so a lot of us, we would literally have a list somewhere because it's easier to keep track. And then it's great for a partner to be able to go and to reference it because like I've described, there can be a lot of nuance there and to make sure they're like, oh, hang on, I need to go back and ask a follow-up question about this actually, or I need to look into this a bit more. So it's just to take your time. It doesn't matter whether you're joining the community at 18 or 68. It could happen to you.
I was actually just about to say that I don't want to get into this too much because this is a podcast for adults and I don't think I have many 18-year-olds listening. No. I don't think I'm that interesting to an 18-year-old. But obviously, you know, you can legally have sex from 17 where you're legally an adult in Ireland from 18. I suppose I find it hard to imagine an 18-year-old navigating all of this in a way that is safe for them. I'm sure it's probably possible, but I'm just thinking of the community. And again, just knowing that like with every community, just like with the world in general, there's going to be people who might take advantage. And especially, we know the dynamic between a very young person and a much older person. And if that older person is consistently searching out for younger people, we often know that is because they can essentially mold them a bit more and have more control. Not in every single case, obviously, right? But, you know, it does happen. And I'm just thinking, in that community, it would be really important that if you are 18 and you're interested, take it very slow as well. Absolutely, and really look out for yourself.
I mean, that is something I can speak to kind of in my own life to a certain degree. So I'm in an age gap relationship. I met my dom when I was 22. And he's significantly older than I am. So the way I look at it is, you know, having a preference, let's say, for someone who's older, for someone who's younger, in that itself, I don't see harm just in the preference. It's all about how these things are managed. And what I would want to know is, if you're going to be in an age gap relationship with somebody, how are you going to make sure that that's an asset to your relationship and that it's not damaging to either party? And to acknowledge the younger person, they are in a position of vulnerability. Yeah. I mean, they just have less resources to hand. Yeah. You know what I mean? So often...
less experience as well.
Less life experience. Yeah. They mightn't be set up in the same position financially. They may not have the same kind of connections. They won't have explored relationships and sexuality to the same degree as someone who's significantly older. And so how do you make sure that that's an asset? And it's all about having an understanding where there can be times where your partner takes on a supportive or guiding role if they're older than you, because they can be the voice of experience. But you don't want there to be a position where they are second guessing your judgment, your choice. Yeah. You want to have an equal voice in your relationship.
And that's the power dynamic again, isn't it?
Yeah. And even if there's power exchange relationship, it's that you still get to have a voice in it. Oh, yeah. And in what it looks like. Yeah. And even if to the outside they mightn't quite catch that and that's what's happening, you're having a voice in choosing that position of submission. Yeah. And that can seem kind of a contradiction. But when you break down, no, it's about you actively kind of teasing out that relationship and the structure you want in it. Yeah.
And that's probably why it is so important to maybe connect the community, because if you are that bit younger and less experienced, maybe there'll be other people who look out for you, and you can again run them by like, my dom said this, is this normal, is this okay? You know, because again, even outside of dom subs, all of that, even just as a young person navigating sex and relationships, it's a minefield.
Yeah, what would you do? You'd speak to your friends.
Exactly. Yeah. And you're like, is this normal? We always like, is this okay? Do you mind me asking, and we can edit this out also if you don't want to talk about it, but like, because you're in a dom sub relationship, right? So just for people listening who might be like my mom, who could be like, what do people get out of it? Why do people get into these relationships? And I know like that's probably how long is a piece of string. People can get so many different things out of that kind of dynamic. But for you, for example, like what does it bring to you?
Yeah, so first thing to say to you, so I'm actually a switch. So I have a relationship with my dominant, and then I have a submissive.
Right,
and they're two separate relationships.
So you can do both.
I can do both.
Right.
Yeah.
Yes.
Like Todrick Hall.
I was about to say, I'm not going to sing, but yeah, you can do both.
I can do both.
Okay, yeah.
So I started off in the community. I was 22. I met my partner. And at the time, so I had been a family carer for 3 years. I had to put college on hold to do that. Yeah. I had a huge amount of responsibility on my plate. And my mental health was suffering because of that. Because it's a huge, when you're making decisions every day that literally are the difference between someone's health.
Yeah.
And,
mental labour, Yeah,
there's a lot that goes into that. And just the appeal of having somewhere where I didn't have to be in charge. Yeah. I didn't have to call the shots. Find somebody that I trusted, lay out the terms and conditions. Yeah. And then I could switch off and understand, okay, well, they've taken the load for just a little while. It was hugely appealing to me. And I was lucky enough I got that. I found that. And that has been something that's so rewarding. And it helps me have a sense of balance in other parts of my life. And then time went on and I explored a bit more. And I realised I could pay forward some of those experiences I'd had. I could offer that to somebody else. And through playing and even just through, signing small, like daily tasks, little things, I know what they're experiencing. I've been there. So I have a great sense of being able to feel where they're at with it. And that can be so rewarding. Like I know the sensation I'm giving you because I have received it.
Yes. Yeah.
And the reward that comes from that and being able to be someone who's a little bit more steady in somebody's life can be very rewarding as well. And like I said, it offers a sense of balance. I think that's the hope. We want these relationships to add something to our lives, to be complementary to other areas of our lives. And so it can do that for you if you're that way inclined. Now, not everybody wants a dom sub relationship. They might just want to dabble just a little bit in the bedroom now and then. However that looks for them,
This feeds so much again into the core desires piece. Yes. It's like from the outside, someone could be like, why are you doing that? Or, you know, why are you into that sexual act? Or why are you into that relationship dynamic? And it's like, well, yeah, thinking about, well, what does it bring me? And especially in the bedroom, and, you know, in kink as well, they use the word play a lot, right? The community would say play. You'd have a play partner or a play party, and you play. And I love that. I love that that word is even used.
I know, it's great, isn't it?
It is a form of psychological play. Yeah. It's kind of like, I don't know, would we even say escapism, but it can feel like that, where we're in this kind of different role, you know, say even if it is just in the bedroom.
Something that's lost so much, isn't it? As you grow up,
we don't
make time for this.
Yeah.
And now you get into adulthood, and then of course that comes with certain privileges of exploring sexuality as well. So why not do it in that sense?
For sure. Like, even when I think of my own life, like I run my own business, I find that great but exhausting. You're keeping so many. I have to make every single decision I make impacts my life, my clients, everything. So all day long I'm making decisions, and I'm someone who actually agonizes over decisions. Like I'm actually not great at decision making. Ironically,
you find yourself thinking about it afterwards. All the time.
Do you know what's funny? Afterwards, I've conquered that. Once I've made one now, I've made it. It's the making of one that sometimes I can be. Even if I'm like, should I bring a jacket, Ivan? Should I bring? Is it going to rain? And he's like, Jesus Christ, just bring one if you want, you know. But then in sex,
but it could be amazing to have somebody just make that call for you.
But that's it. It is, because sometimes I will say to Ivan, I'll be like, oh, what'll we eat for dinner? He's like, I don't know, what you think? I'm like, you tell me. Just tell me.
Can
and
you
let's
please
do
decide?
It. Yeah. So then in the bedroom, I'm like, if I'm being told what to do and where to do it and how to do it, I'm like, oh, like this is actually so rewarding.
You're like, I've switched off. I'm just concentrating on how this feels.
Exactly. I feel freer.
If they're telling me that this is what they want, then obviously that's well within.
Yeah,
it's something
that I want to. Yeah, that I'm happy, willing, consensual.
And if they're saying do this to me, you're like, oh, I don't need to think about it. So I don't need the pause to ask. I don't need to do this or this. Everything, all the steps have been cut out for me. I just get to concentrate on what we're doing and enjoy the experience, be more present in it.
Yeah, no, I think it's all about thinking, look beyond the surface level stuff you're seeing, because we do have snap judgments and it does happen. And especially with a topic even around sex relationships, it's a very emotive topic. We project a lot.
And that's perfectly fine too. You know, if you come across something and your first reaction is to go, oh, and to kind of be taken aback and be like, no, but that's okay. Just remember, like, nobody is asking you to partake in this. Nobody is in any way going to invalidate that boundary. No. It's okay for you to go, no, not for me.
Yeah.
And even if you're like, you know, I wouldn't be comfortable discussing that one because it makes, I don't like it. I don't feel good about it. That's completely fine too. And other people can still go about their lives. You know, we can have a little bit of a live and let live. Once they're doing this consensually, risk informed between 2 or 3 or 10 adults, you know, whatever it might be, then that's perfectly fine. It's okay if not all of this appeals to you. Because nothing's for everyone.
No, of course not. And, you know, someone could be really involved in kink and then dip out of it, or vice versa. Like, your desires can change, your needs can change. And also, just I'm conscious because people are probably listening to this, not watching it. You have a lovely little, I call it a choker, but it's a collar.
Is it turned the right way?
Is it a collar?
It is.
Is that what you call it? So what's that about? Because I think people, again, just will be really interested in this.
Yeah, so a collar it's a mark of ownership technically. So that sounds very, very harsh, and some people see it that way. But it's something that would be given from a dominant to a submissive to symbolise their relationship and the power dynamic they have, and you carry it with you. So wherever you're going, you have the reminder of that person and the place they have in your life and the decision you have made to let them take the lead on certain areas of your life, and it can bring people a great sense of security and support. They carry quite a bit of weight. Someone to wear a day collar would be the equivalent kind of to an engagement ring or a wedding band or whoever it is that you might. However,
because that's its own kind of sign as well, wearing a wedding ring or anything, isn't it?
That you've connected to that person, made that commitment to them. In very much in a I belong to you, you belong to me kind of way. So it's quite similar to that in that way, but it is it's a mark of your dominant and a symbol of the power you have given them in your life. And then each couple will have an understanding of kind of the terms and conditions in their relationship that come along with wearing a collar or having that commitment. But yeah, just as you would in a marriage, you'll have your own understandings of what that means or any significant partnership. So yeah, that's what it means. So I'm a collared submissive, so I go about my day.
And do your subs have collars?
No, so I have one submissive. We've had a chat about it. So we have an understanding that at some point she will go on to find her forever dom.
Okay.
So we don't...
Are you a foster dom?
Yes. I say that I'll walk her down the aisle to her and she'll have her forever home. So yeah, we have like a platonic relationship. So we have a great friendship. We have a kink life. We have power exchange and the support that offers. But one day I think she would like to find a relationship that was romantic as well and had that element. And when she does, I'll walk her down the aisle to her forever dom and hand her off. And and so because that, I've chosen not to collar her.
Yeah.
Because to me, if I was to collar her, that would symbolise that she now belonged to me and we're making that kind of covenant together to have that kind of relationship. So at some point, hopefully her forever dom does that for her. But we'd still do small things to symbolise the connection we have. Yeah.
Which I think also is kind of hot. Like, do you know, I actually do. I'm just kind of like, oh, if I'm out wearing this, most people are going to look at that and just think it's a cute choker. But I know it's something else.
And that raises something it's really interesting. You know, there's debate of how much can you bring these relationships into your day-to-day.
Yeah.
And you're like, honestly, you can do a lot of small things that go entirely unnoticed and it's not bothering anybody.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
And you're not in any way encroaching on them or asking them to be part of your kink life. Like, for example, you know, you and your dom, you go into a coffee shop and your dom orders your drink. Do you think the barista is standing there going, why did he order 2 cappuccinos?
Yeah.
No,
of course.
They're
not even thinking of that.
No, it's no way encroaching on them. There's lots of small things like that you can incorporate into your day, where little rituals or things you have, little understandings you have between you that go completely unnoticed. It only means something to you because you've set it out and put that intention behind it.
I am something's coming into my head. I'm not in a dom sub relationship or anything like that, but it's so Ivan will say the odd thing that will catch me just off guard, like, and it'll be so and like if it was anyone else that said it, I'd be like, fuck off. But like I remember when I was so we had one dog adopted and I really wanted a second one, a particular second. We ended up getting her, of course. And
like,
I got my way and I was like, oh please, can we just go and meet her or whatever? And he was like, he just said, I'll think about it, but don't get your hopes up. And I was like, oh my God, why did I just find that so hot? I don't know why.
So commanding?
What was that? Very grumpy and sexy and commanding. Yeah. Now, again, that's such in a play, like as in if he actually was like, you know, if he said that about something else, I don't know, about something I was wearing or anything else, I personally wouldn't be into that, even in a playful way. I'd be like, absolutely, go rot somewhere, like, as in, you know.
You were actively asking him, he had an understanding. She's kind of asking me to take the weight of this decision now. He knows you well enough by now that he understood what was happening there. And that's how he responded. And you're going... Because you had deferred to him. I just felt a bit like, ooh. And I said to, because my best friend is a gay man and, you know, I sometimes say things to him like, I'm like, he said, you know, don't get your hopes up. Or what was it? Don't get your hopes up. I'll think about it, but don't get your hopes up. I was like, kind of hot, isn't it? He was like, it is. I don't know why, but it is. It's just funny. That's wearing a collar as well. Some people, they would, in their relationships, have a focus that is a bit more sexual and it would symbolise more about sharing like your sexual self with somebody. But you also see people just wearing them for play. Yeah. Literally because it feels good to wear, like using a collar and leash or that kind of thing. Yeah. And that doesn't have to symbolise the wider relationship. You just put it on for play. Feels good. Yeah. At the end of that play session, you take it off and you go about your day. But so when we see someone wearing them day to day, they would often find that there's meaning associated with it. Yeah. And like you said, it could just be that it's hot and that's a legitimate reason.
Yeah, that's okay. Yeah. Like that's enough. Okay, so I think this is honestly so refreshing because I think, again, when we are talking about kink in a more mainstream way, I have found sometimes it's not in an empowering way. Sometimes it's still very much under this male gaze of like,
yes,
you know, oh, my girlfriend is submissive, I can do what I want her. And I particularly see this with kind of young couples online and stuff. Yeah. And that's the stuff I would worry about. I don't give a shit about, no, in a good way, like about what consenting adults are doing in their free time and what dynamics. Yeah. We all seek power, giving it away, taking it, all across our lives in different ways. Yeah. Power is a dirty word. It's seen as a dirty word or a kind of weird topic, but we can't avoid it. It's part of human nature. Yeah. So I think whatever way you play with that consensually and explore that is fabulous. And I think we need more people like you that talk about it in an educational, accessible, like safe way. So people hopefully won't get into these dangerous or unhealthy situations, or if they do, they can get out of it quickly. We just don't have time for a second. I know, but that's okay, because I think this was a big one, and I think there's a lot of interest in kink, and like I just don't think it would do you service to just like fly through the kink bit. You know, I really want to focus on it. I hope that's okay.
Oh yeah, of course. Good. Yeah, we've had a great chat about this, and and I love what you're saying. You know, about making it a bit more open and more conversational. Yeah. And I warned people, you know, they come to a workshop with me. I mean, I do an array of workshops, but there's a few that are kink focused. Like, look, this is going to be a bit anticlimactic for you. I have a feeling you've built this up in your head now, what it's going to be like. And you get in here and then like, comments I get is, but that was just so normal.
Yeah, but that's
and that just felt so laid back. And you're like, but that's how it is.
That's good.
We're just talking about one part of life.
Exactly. Yeah.
Just we could be here to talk about anything.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to be something that's a deep, dark secret.
No. And it doesn't have to be really extreme and really provocative and really all of these things in a, you know, as you said, just can be a normal conversation. And 100%, kinky people can be be boring as well.
Oh,
you know, they can have the most mundane.
I often think like you'd a hidden camera sat in my sitting room waiting for me to get up to something. And you'd be like, okay, that's like your 12th cup of tea for the day.
Yeah. Yeah.
She's still in her pajamas. The highlight of my day was like, which scented candle will I buy? Like, you know.
I know. I know. I think, people probably imagine different things to what actually happens in real life. Yeah. Okay, so I know you're in Instagram jail like myself, and it's all going to shit, girl, to be honest. I don't know what we're going to do. But do you want to share just where to find you?
Yeah.
Where to
learn
more?
I think the easiest place to get a hold of me is if you go to my website, because depending on how nice Instagram's been to me at the time, I'll just redirect to where you'll actually get the information. So it's thekinkmother.com.
I love that, thekinkmother.com.
Yeah, so not the Godfather, I'm the Kink Mother.
Yeah.
You know?
I still think King Queen of Ireland is in my head. Kinky Queen of Ireland.
I'll take it.
That'll have to be the name of our episode now. I'll have to think about it. Yeah. But thank you so much, Aoife.
Oh, of course, yeah.
Thank
it's been
you
really
so much
nice
for coming in.
It has. And I know you're meant to say that on a podcast. Be like, oh, it's been a pleasure. But no, I've just sat here for an hour. I have a cup of tea and I'm having a chat.
Yeah.
Like, this is brilliant. It's a great day of work for me, you know?
Yeah, same. Yeah. I can't believe I get to do this for my work, to be honest. Thank you very much to playblue.ie, sponsor of the G-Spot podcast. Don't forget to check out the episode notes to enter our super exciting competition and be in with the chance of winning all of my Season 2 toy recommendations. Good luck!
This show is part of the Head Stuff Podcast Network, a hub for the creative and the curious. Shows are produced in association with Head Stuff and the Podcast Studios Dublin. Find out more or become a member at headstuffpodcasts.com.